Hoarding. Okay.
Yeah.
So first of all, could you introduce yourself, Graham? This is Graham Downing.
Hi, I'm Graham Downing. I'm a clinician,
Okay.
and I have an interest in health. And although I don't profess to have an expertise in 5G per se, I've certainly looked at the literature and I've read experts on it, and I'm concerned about the health effects. And like many other clinicians and scientists around the world, we are concerned about the health effects of this 5G technology.
Okay.
So that's what my interest is.
And you've got your title as doctor, isn't it? Okay.
Yeah, I'm a functional medicine doctor.
Okay.
So I work in the area of energy is a big not woo-woo energy, but actual energy. Where there's some people come and say they haven't got any energy, and you look at the systems in the endocrine system, and you look at the different components of that to try and work out what's going wrong, rule out any horrible pathology, and then you get into the area of functional medicine. And things like the mitochondria, the little energy factories in the cells. And as soon as I started to hear about 5G and started to look at it, the penny dropped with me, because I've already shown some evidence, and other people are aware of this now, that there are cellular changes as a result of this technology. And I'm certainly not, I don't make any claims. I'm not, but what I'm seeing the lack of is proper, thorough research and safety testing of this. So that's my into this, we should all demand that any product, especially something like this, is going to be rolled out across the globe, and it's already been stated there's going to be no safety testing, or it's going to happen as they go along. There's already been hearings on this, and Mark will probably give you more detail on that. And when you see the industry sit there and be grilled by US politicians, and they turn around and say we haven't done any proper studies, I mean, that is unbelievable. I can't think of any other technology that will be that impactful globally that's ever not had any safety testing. So really, this is just common sense, And although I was chatting with Mark earlier, Mark knows my interest in this. I don't have any expertise in what Mark does, but just basic common sense science, basic cellular physiology, and experts in the field. I mean, I don't know how many have signed documents. What, over 200 scientists and doctors?
It's over 200, about 370.
Yeah, experts who are experts in those fields who are raising the alarm. We'd have to be silly not to listen to them.
That's great. And Mark, a little bit about you, please, about your background.
My background was, I started off many years ago, engineer, stress mechanics, and I went into, had a time at a secret weapons facility, so I understood that non-ionizing radiation wasn't the thing that, you get a lot of the scientific community will tell you that there's not enough energy in that particular part of the spectrum. Well, I knew it would be a weapon system, so I think that was a bit ridiculous for anybody to even think that, it's a bit concerning, because you do still get quite a lot of people who mention the fact that there's not amount of energy in that particular part of the spectrum. Well, that's in its natural sort of state, not in its man-made state. So man-made non-ionizing radiation can be weaponized pretty easily. It's not that complicated. So my background, I've got quite a lot of inventions and patents for products, head-up display systems in particular, which mitigate these type of secret weapons off the battlefield. And these weapon systems have been around for quite a number of years. Secret weapon systems that have been used. So consequently, as Graham mentioned before about the testing, the lack of testing in 5G. Well, 5G first and foremost is a weapon. It's a weapon in every single part of its technical parameters. And a lot of people think that's absolutely crazy how it can get into a state like that. And the reason why they can't test it, won't test it, and haven't tested it, is because it'll fail. It'll actually fail the IC and IRP guidelines, which aren't sufficient in any way, shape or form. They're lacking in so many ways. In fact, they ignore all of the non-thermal microwave radiation tests that have been done on animals, etc. Many thousands of published peer-reviewed scientific papers that show that damage is done well below the thermal impact from microwave radiation. So that's where we are with in relation to that. And that's obviously because that's why it's a weapon system, and like I said, a lot of people find that extremely hard to believe. However, that is unfortunately the situation that we have. So we've got governments across the West rolling what's predominantly not a telecoms system, but a weapons system on top of the populations across the West.
And you guys did a stellar job when we had our event in Totnes just under a year ago, where you both spoke, Graham in person, and Mark, you had your recorded video at the event that Jason Leosatos and myself organised. And I really want to thank you guys for your contribution to raising awareness of 5G, the health impacts, and what 5G is about. And of course, Mark, you've met with Barry, who backed up what you were saying about how it's a weapon. And you know, Graham, you've done such in-depth knowledge about 5G, about how it's bringing in, you know, the link with artificial intelligence, and about, you know, you had this guy talking about in Silicon Valley. You played that short video earlier, didn't you? About connecting with these things, summoning things in.
Well, that's crazy, because there's a few clips I showed. One was Dr. Suzanne Gildher, who's probably one of the leading experts in building robots or synthetic kind of humanoid or the newest you're going to get to kind of a human robot, and it's still relatively embryonic, although not completely embryonic. And one of the key things for this, and she mentioned it, and the reason why I just played the video is because if you get up and speak about this stuff, people don't believe you. So I said, okay, actually listen to the expert, and that's all I'm doing is pulling up the evidence. And she stated, one of the things, well, there's many things to do with 5G, and Mark has his angle and what he talks about. But from my point of view, what it is, in order that these synthetic humans that are being built now, believe it or not, and don't trust me, listen to the experts who are doing it, is they require 5G in order to become mobile amongst us. And I tried to present evidence further down the line, saying I don't honestly think this is a great idea, and it's certainly not been well thought out. And of course the synths, as they're called, are all in parallel with artificial intelligence, which already through documentation that was released from the White House, and I showed this documentation in one of the first presentations, or one of the major presentations I did on AI, that they are effectively going to allow everything to be run by this technology. And not only that, but the AI itself will have to code itself, because it's going to be beyond the ability of a human. So when you see, from my point of view, I see the problem of the technology in that relation. Mark is to do with weapon systems and his expertise. But just even if you don't even buy into that, just the fact that this stuff is going to absolutely revolutionize our experience of life. And also because when AI comes in, and which requires 5G, then we're going to be entered into what's called the fourth industrial revolution, and these robots and and all the documents are coming out about Oxford University and other places are going to take your jobs. And this is huge. And if you listen to the doctor speaking to it, the world's going to be turned on its head and it's all going to be great. Well, I don't think it is. And actually there's a parallel, because there's no real thinking. There's no real restraint on this. There's no real proper understanding. And actually, in fact, when you talk to all these people involved in this technology, they're all worried about it. So surely the thing to do is not to continue until you've worked out how you're going to control this. And quite frankly, I don't think you can control it.
Yeah.
I think the issue that they've actually missed, all these signal systems are pretty harmful to biology, and so to have this blanket 5G coverage is absolutely bizarre. Because obviously you've got all these robots kicking around, they need 5G. Well, 5G's blanket coverage, that's it's neurotoxic. So you're going to degrade the biological structures in life to actually fill your will with.
But then you just said it, because this world that's being built, as incredible as it sounds, is not built for us.
Yeah, exactly.
And this is the issue. And and correct me if I'm wrong. And I absolutely, as I always say with this stuff, I want to be wrong, because who wants to be right about it? But these people literally live in a bubble where they must have loads of yes men and yes women around them just telling how wonderful this. And of course, maybe not some of the scientists I show, but I'm sure there's people, counting the dollars and not looking past their nose or not looking past their wallet on this, And of course, there's other nefarious things you could maybe bring in. But I think what is central to what I see and others see, and what's central to what Mark sees, is the kind of final nail in the coffin of this thing is 5G. 5G seems to be the pivotal technology that's required. And all of us, even though we come from different angles and have different understanding, all of us are deeply concerned about what happens once this rolls out. And I think absolutely, and not just, everyone's concerned. Anyone who's got half a brain, was it Senator Blumenthal? I can't remember, was it Senator?
It was Blumenthal. Well, I spoke to the Democrat and Veterans Party, it's about a little bit at the same time last year, where I stated that there would be no safety regulations, no standards in relation, there's no research to show that it's safe, because obviously direct off the battlefield is a weapon. And I stated that at the conference. I know that conference was actually aired in the US. Some people were very concerned about it, and they actually went out and asked the industry if there'd been any safety checks and any research to show that this technology was safe. That was in December, and I think it was February the 7th when they came back, the industry came back, the FCC, the FDA, and they've stated in Congress that there's actually no safety data around and surround 5G. Now that's quite interesting, because anybody that would get involved with 5G therefore is in breach of the Nuremberg Code. That means it's an indictable crime. It's a crime against humanity, because the fact that the law's pretty straightforward. You cannot use or test experimental technology on humans. That's pretty illegal in the international court's view. Obviously that was Nuremberg was all about, and obviously the Nuremberg trials, Barry's talked about it. I believe that this is actually a genocide on the people, the densification. I would hate to be any scientist anywhere in the world who are signing off on any of this technology that hasn't been fully risk assessed or tested to be safe, because you are absolutely in breach of Nuremberg Code, and that will carry with it a heavy criminal conviction. And these people will be convicted, because unfortunately for the people that are rolling 5G out, people have woken up. Something not right. We've got a massive collapse in flying insect populations. We know the areas. It was quite interesting. I mentioned to Graham a while ago about the increase in deaths in Gateshead since the rollout of this technology. And Graham said, well, I would check around other parts of the country because there are some other spikes. It's quite interesting, because what I did, I went on Google Earth and checked the lighting systems in these particular areas that Graham had pointed us in the direction of, and lo and behold, had the same technology what we had in Gateshead.
Wow.
So that was unbelievable. So they had actually had significant increases, and we've seen significant increase in cancer, death, heart attack, stroke, all since the technology was actually rolled out. Now, believe it or not, these local authorities are totally in breach of the Social Care Act 2012. The government have a duty of care to protect the populations from non-ionising and ionising radiation. So they're actually rolling out technology that's totally unrisk assessed, totally illegal, totally unlawful. And we now have the evidence to show that this actually is having a very detrimental health impact on the. So we've got the anecdotal evidence that actually is supported by all of the science. The science is absolutely damning. So this is a crime against humanity that we're seeing rolled out. I'd hate to be any scientist who had anything to do with that.
I've often heard that it's said that this microwave radiation, especially 5G, will be a very powerful mitochondrial poison. Now, what is mitochondria, and how is it a poison? How is it affecting mitochondria?
From my point of view, and science may disprove this or underpin this, we don't know yet, because why? The testing hasn't been done properly. But there are the mitochondria. Okay, so the mitochondria make energy. Okay, they make something called ATP, which everyone kind of studies at school, at elementary level. And your body makes its weight roughly in ATP every day. So, I think at any point in time you've got about 5 seconds storage of it. And if you don't have ATP, you die. So this isn't something which you can get away with if you start playing around with or screwing around with. So Mitochondria are vital, and each cell will have about 2,000 of these things, you know, floating around, and they have a symbiotic relationship with us. And when I looked at it, and I looked at studies, and you know, because I was concerned, I said, okay, are there any studies here that might show that there's an impact on it? And subsequently, since doing that, others have looked at it, and you know, and other people are concerned. So, what I did find evidence. And there's certainly, you know, if you look at the logic or the science of how these cells work, and you look at how these, you know, microwave technology or microwave itself can affect cellular physiology, you know, there is evidence that it will affect the mitochondria. Now, as I've said, without the mitochondria, you don't function, you don't live. And of course, if you know, and things like, when the mitochondria go offline, you start to get things like cancer. You know, you start to go back to a more primitive way of making energy, which the cells can't really do. You know, the system can't survive very well with that. So, you know, and I put together, you know, there's a particular video we did at Totnes, and I think it's got quite a few hits actually. I think last time I looked, it was well over 100,000 people.
Yes, done very well.
Which is very interesting, you know, that it got that kind of traction. You know, and you put together some ideas, and people might say, well, you know, we can't be definitive or whatever, but the point is that you start to see a direction of where this could go. And I'm not making any claims to that, but what I am saying is, well, you know, if you've got any indication that it could damage this part of the body, or it's certainly going to affect the cells, there's no doubt about that. And you could affect these, you know, these very, very delicate, they are very delicate, the DNA, sorry, well, let's not get into that, but these structures themselves are, you know, are very, very delicate and open to damage. And if you start screwing around with that, you are absolutely on a hiding to nothing, because, you know, you're going to absolutely increase illness, and you risk things like cancer, and of course you risk things like death. Now, definitively, have they done huge studies on this? No, but there are worrying signals there. And of course that fits in with some of the other data that's coming in and what other people are maybe reporting anecdotally. But there's more than enough stuff there for someone to say, hold on a minute, we're about to roll this out en masse. Do you know? Yeah. I mean, I just don't get it. I mean, it doesn't, and it, you know, and like I said, I'm not making any claims, but I don't understand how, was it Mr. Wheeler? Oh, Tom Wheeler. Who just said, there's, you know, effectively screw the safety testing, we're bringing this out. And I think there was also a minister here that got up in front of Parliament and always said the same thing. Nothing's going to get in the way of this. And then what he did mention, spend time on mention, was how much money they were going to make out of this. You know, and that is absolutely, I mean, look, we all know that this is nefarious, right? Because this gentleman, I think, was in the industry prior to being the head of, I mean, I don't know, maybe you can correct me on that.
No, it was, yeah.
Well, yeah. There you go. I don't know, but
he was.
You know, it's just unfathomable that could just go through and no one's going to say a dicky bird. I just don't. It's like saying we're going to build a new airplane, and the airplane is going to. Everyone's going to, you know, this airplane. Everyone's going to ride on this airplane, and we're just not going to bother safety testing it at all. It just doesn't make any sense. You know, maybe I'm naive, but you know, and so that alone concerns me. That what backroom deals have been done, because like I said, it's over this side of the pond and that side of the pond, and you know, and they've just made this decision. Oh, we need 5G. We're rolling it out. Well, really, do you need 5G? Do you really need this technology? Is it that important? You know, if you remove the AI thing, which is obviously another draw for why this is probably happening. Yeah. If you know, who gives a crap whether you can download something a bit faster? You know, I actually want to be able to breathe and walk around and be healthy. Mm-hmm. And at the moment, as I said, with normal Wi-Fi, you've got half a chance you can kind of get away from it. But by the nature of this stuff, because it needs direct line of sight, and you know, my understanding, you're going to have antennae everywhere. How the hell are you going to avoid this thing? You know, and beaming down from God knows what satellites and the rest of it. So, and like I said, it's funny because it was a few years ago, the penny just dropped. I just suddenly thought about this and thought, this is wrong. On so many levels. I don't know when the penny dropped for you, but the penny dropped for me about a year, 2 years ago. And so that's it. So I think my concerns are reasonable. I don't think they're unreasonable. You know, this isn't some great big conspiracy thing. You know, this is just basic safety testing, basic science. And like I said, I'm not the expert in that technology, but over what, 200, 300 people who are, have all signed documents and said, and some of them have had to be retired to do it.
Yeah.
Because, you know, it's like certain things get branded, and if you speak out against them, it's a career killer. I would imagine if you need research grants and all the rest of it, I imagine if you come out against this, there'll be a big pushback for people in the. I'm not in that area, thank God, but people are in that area. But was it Professor Powell or Paul?
Martin Powell.
Martin Powell.
Yeah, he's a professional. He retired now, didn't he?
Yeah.
He's retired, yeah, and he's now come out and said things. So you know, and you know, when they're not retired, they're kind of limited about, you know, maybe about what they can say. So you do get a certain degree of honesty. So that's my point of view, and I think any reasonable person would share some of what I've said. Is that, for crying out loud, how the hell can you roll this out everywhere?
Well, you can't, Graham. I mean, it's illegal. What they're doing is actually illegal.
But the brazenness of it is
absolutely brazen.
It's off the scale.
All product developments, every product on the planet's got some sort of regulatory guideline and standard.
But this is common sense, isn't it?
Well, it's just
is that common sense?
The law and standards are inextricably linked. I can't make a product recklessly. Like, let's say I made a tyre that's made out of plastic. I give it to you. You drive down the road. You've had a crash, kill you and your family. Yeah. I'm in trouble. I go to jail, because the law and standards are inextricably linked. Mm-hmm. So you can't then have a technology. I mean, what's absolutely appalling about 5G? These signal systems have been shown in a very many animal studies to do harm. Mm-hmm. So we've got the latest national toxicology program, $24 million, 10-year study showed that cancer increased in rats in the study. Now, the Nuremberg Code states quite clearly, if any phenomena that's tested and is shown to cause harm to animals in a laboratory test, you just cannot test that on humans. That just rules it out. So we've got
common sense.
It's absolutely common sense. You've got the NTP, you've got the Ramsini Institute, which supported it. That was another 10-year study, and then you've got the recent study that's just come out in Israel, where troops, because obviously this is battlefield interrogation equipment we're talking about here, troops on the battle space have been exposed to the same type of radiation. We know there's been a massive increase in neurological disorders where troops have been exposed to it, where they're coming home and committing suicide, and you've got the Israelis saying that this should be reclassified as a class 1 cancer-causing radiation. So the science says what it is. We know what it is. It carries with it a number of other health issues.
But I mean, they did study. I mean, with the standard 4Gs, you know, with the phones. You know, they did a safety study. You got to hold it off here a little bit, and that to some extent mitigates the damage. But we're getting all these ipsilateral same-sided tumours are all coming out. But with the 5G, the studies I saw, they were holding the source of the microwave was 40 centimeters from the animal they were testing on, and it was affecting into the brain, and it was, you know, and they demonstrated memory being affected in the animals and changes into the brain, and there was no direct contact. And you know, in other studies I saw, they control for heat problems. So they control for heat, which is what they're saying. Oh, it's just thermal effects. It's not thermal effects. I saw at least, it must have been 11 groups that looked at that and said, no, these effects are not to do with heat. There's another mechanism that's causing this. So this is clear. This is not rampant, you know, lunacy. This is clear. And therefore you have to question, you know, what is happening with our representatives and what's happening in these institutions that are supposed to be watching. Because as you just said, go invent something and see if you've got half a chance of getting it out with someone, you know, immediately knocking on your door and saying, hey mate, what are you doing? So how, you know, this is so brazen.
Well, that's the reason why we've got to take legal action against these characters. We need to get them into courts. They haven't dismantled the whole legal system as yet, and that's the attack. You know, we've got to go on the offensive. We cannot allow the dishonest information that's being passed over by these regulators to the general public. Public Health England stating that there's no evidence to show that this microwave radiation. I mean, it's so outrageous and dishonest. You know, you've got a public body there who are really acting as a bunch of criminals.
Well, I mean, you know, Public Health England, there's serious question marks over its independence.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, and there are others that have talked about that. You know, this is, you know, it's a kind of quasi public body, but you know, and so, you know, whether or not one can completely rely on their independence, I don't know, and that, you know, that has to be challenged.
Well, they've painted themselves into a corner, and where Goldsworthy, who obviously was at PHE, when he actually wrote his paper up on the damage that this microwave radiation caused, she lost his position. So that there's something very disingenuous about the whole thing, and I think it was Blair. Obviously, everybody understands that Tony Blair. You wouldn't trust him as far as you could actually throw the guy. I mean, he's proven what he's all about. So consequently, these organisations aren't independent. So the information that they give you, it's totally dishonest. I mean,
okay, so you're a public health body. Your duty is to protect the public health of the country you're in. You have technology which has gone up into the highest echelons of the American political system. They've looked at it. They've had a proper, well, you know, at least some hearings or inquiry into it, and on camera, live, under whatever oath they have to take, or whatever, you know, threat of criminal prosecution if you lie to a senator or whatever, then they have stated they have not done the safety testing. So how then can any public health body, and I'm not just picking on public health thing, underwrite it and say that it's safe? That doesn't make any logical sense in this universe.
Got no evidence.
So that's my view, and I think that's not an unreasonable view.
Well, Graham, from a scientific perspective, how can a body like that make a statement like that on the basis of nothing?
Yeah.
I mean, that is absolutely dishonest.
Yeah. Because I suppose they must say, oh well, it's an extension of the prior test, but it's not an extension of mine. You know, and forgive me because you're the expert, but it doesn't appear from my reading that it is an extension. It's a whole different ballgame.
Absolutely.
You know, and so you can't sell one from the other. You know, or one on the other.
Well, we've seen significant increases in neurological disorders, stroke, mental health issues, all on the back of the 1G, 2G, 3G, 4G rollout. Consequently, and there's a correlation between the increase in the density of this microwave radiation in illnesses right across the whole of the countries in the West. These diseases, you know, your Crohn's disease, you go to Africa, you know, they haven't got anything near the significant increases that we have in the Western world. And I mean, they call it the modern, you know, these modern day illnesses. Well, I can tell you that, you know, there's the link with the science shows that these microwave radiation signals are a factor in
the thing is, look, even if they were to say, well, you can't make those claims, or there other blah blah blah, and correlation is causation, fine. But where's the safety stuff? It doesn't. You don't get around the very first step, the very first hurdle. You don't remove that. You know, you know, as valid as those points may or may not be, and obviously there's a huge amount of data there you could argue about possibly. But where does that? How does that say we don't have to do any testing there?
Well, the bit that I always like to quote is the insurance companies. Now, the insurance companies, they're not fools. They got caught out with asbestos. Microwave radiation transmitters are uninsurable. They're uninsurable for a reason, because insurance companies have looked at the same data that we've looked at and went, "Oh, too risky." So, if that doesn't tell anybody, you know, if that's not indicative for what's going on, right? If people can't accept the fact that those insurance companies are a little bit on the sharp side, then, you know, God help us.
I'm always very clear, and I said to Mark before, is that, you know, I stay in my wheelhouse, and I understand what I understand. Yeah. There's aspects of this, quite frankly, beyond, you know, it's not my area of expertise. You know, and the central point for me is where I find agreement, because I can't understand what is not in my expertise, is that I bring it back to this, is it unreasonable that if you are going to impact every single living thing on this planet, that you at least do the basic safety testing first? That's it. And I don't understand how anyone can have a disagreement with that or attack that position, because if you do, then you remove all common sense from every single thing that's ever been made or done, you know. And, you know, it's like saying, well, here's a parachute, you know, we've just invented it, go and jump out of a plane. It's like, well, do you not want to do some basic testing to see if it holds you up and the weight, you know what I mean? And by the way, everybody in the whole planet's going to jump out of the plane and test this approached you.
It's the only sort of thing you would get away with it, pointing down to him. That's
it. And therefore, it's no surprise when people speak out against those interests, they're going to come under attack, aren't they? Or they may, you know.
Yeah. A great old saying is, whenever you're over the target, you get a lot of flack.
There you go.
We certainly get that.
Yeah, fantastic. Any like one question to each other, perhaps, or anything?
I think so.
Yeah, got hell. Why have we been interviewed this late out? After a conference, we'll be speaking all day.
I'll treat you both to a drink, guys.
Oh, cheers, mate. That's
Please, Decker, do. Yeah, fantastic.
Right, that's it. We're there. We're doing
Fantastic. Awesome, guys. Let's stop 5G. Fantastic.